So today we read Genesis chapters 13 through 17, and some things that stood out to me that I was thinking about. The first was all of the kind of, I guess, drama that was going on between all the leaders of the countries and how he was able to save his nephew Lot, um, obviously with God's help. And that was a very eventful story. And then in chapter 16, um, it's kind of heartbreaking. Um, Sarai, Abram's wife, was, very distraught that she didn't have children or that she couldn't give her husband children. So just imagining how she was feeling. And then, also we get the example of, God's still able to use people who aren't really making good choices. Because in chapter 16, she kind of decides to use her handmaid to give her husband a child, and then regrets her choice and then takes her regret out on Hagar, which, obviously isn't fair to her. And then Hagar flees and she's very distraught, but God, you know, reveals himself to her and tries to give her hope, even in a bad situation that she's in. So that was a really sad chapter. Um, and then in chapter 17, um, so much going on these few chapters. um, God appears to Abram, changes his name to Abraham, and changes Sarai's name to Sarah, which I think is really beautiful. And also, reinforces his promise that he will have a son with his wife. And um, it is a little fun, the story is a little funny that he's going to be so old, but it just shows that, God can do anything. And then the circumcision, imagining that is a little crazy. So I'd love to hear what stood out to you today if you're inclined to comment. But very eventful chapters. Thanks for joining.